Hi everyone, I'm Mikey, and today I'm going to be talking about why accessibility for all starts with the developers. But first, a bit about me. I'm a senior artist and I've been in the games industry for just over 8 years now. I've worked on everything from indie titles all the way through to AAA, and over the last 8 years, I've worked on things like environments, characters, VFX, and rigging and animation. In 2018, I worked on Pacer, on hero assets, environments, and bits of lighting and animation as well. After we wrapped on Pacer, I then went to work on This Dead Winter, where I brought all the weird and wacky creatures to life. I then worked as a senior artist and project lead on Zombieland Headshot Fever Reloaded, where I led a team of about 20 people, and the game also was the flagship title for the PSVR 2. I then worked on Turbo Golf Racing as a 3D generalist, working on environment assets and shaders, as well as scene compositions, so each level was completely unique from one another. I've also worked on a bunch of freelance projects, including Spirits of Heartwood, Zombie Dog, where I built a dismemberment system, and more recently I did the 2D animations for a acro documentary called Touching the Sky. So that was my work background. I'll go over a bit of my personal background as well. So I am legally blind. I was diagnosed with keratoconus. It's basically the structures of my eye, especially the front of my eye in the cornea, are weak to the point where the structure of it collapses. So instead of looking like an igloo, it looks more like a teardrop. That causes light to refract in all sorts of directions, causing blurred, distorted, and sort of kaleidoscopy sort of vision. I've been working on a project in Unreal to basically showcase what my vision looks like. So this is what healthy vision looks like, usually like 20/20 vision. And then this is what my vision looks like, or someone with keratoconus' vision looks like. And then here's a direct comparison of the two. So in 2017, I got my first job in the games industry, and we were in a small office for about 6 months. We then moved to a bigger office. They had windows, but the windows wouldn't open. So the only way of getting any air into the room was through air conditioning. After about 3 months in this new office, I started getting pains in both eyes, and then it got to the point where every day got worse and worse and worse until one day I woke up and I couldn't lift my head and I couldn't open my eyes properly. So my wife and I kind of panicked and went to the hospital, and my specialist told me that I had developed an infection in both eyes as a result of the air conditioning drying out the saline in the lenses, and then it was causing the lenses to actually rub against my corneas and caused a condition called hydrops, which is where the front of your cornea ruptures open and lets in all the fluid. So both of the fronts of my eyes are kind of they've got like a bit of a white coloration to them. So my specialist he basically recommended for me to ask if I can work remotely. So I did. So I asked my boss, I said, can I work from home, considering everything that's happened? He said no. He said, if I let you work from home, I'll have to let everybody work from home. And then I was fired, and that was it. I lost my first job in the games industry. Since 2017 and still to this day, they still work with charities, well-known charities in the games industry who support players and gamers with disabilities. That same studio who fired me because of my disability also claimed DEI on their website. I just think that's absolutely hilarious. So that's why I'm kind of doing this talk, is to advocate for others like the 23-year-old me who was completely naive and just so thankful to have a job at all, even, trying to overcome all the odds and having a disability. I was just so thankful to have a job in an industry that I'd worked so hard for, only to be fired from something that was completely out of my control because the studio wouldn't make an adjustment for someone with a disability. I honestly think the time to speak up is now. I think we need a more accessible and inclusive industry for the developers. It's really easy to slap DEI on your website and claim that you care about people and that you're inclusive and accessible. A lot of these studios just say it without actually proving it. And I think the time is now to to start proving it. Unfortunately, the reality is that what happened to me could happen to anybody, not including people already born with disabilities. According to the ONS, it's estimated that around 1 in 7 people will become disabled before the age of 35. When we talk about accessibility and inclusion, we're not talking about the needs of them. We're talking about the needs of all of us, whether it be sooner or later. I want to show you a walkthrough of the first day in a new studio as if it was a video game, but the player is legally blind. Now, a lot of the points apply to many other types of disabilities as well, but this is just from my own perspective. Everything in this section has happened to me in one way or another, but it's kind of shoved into one big journey. So it's my first day in the studio, and I've got my viewfinder and my white cane. I've already done the tutorial with my wife over the weekend to sort of mentally map out the journey to the office. So now I need to cross a busy main road outside of my house, and there's no pelican crossing or zebra crossing, so it's like crossing the road is super dangerous, and it's like a real life game of Frogger. I make it to the bus stop without getting killed by an NPC, achievement unlocked. I'm now waiting for the bus. The public transport NPC doesn't spawn again. Sometimes the line trace doesn't register, causing the NPC to just drive straight past me. This has happened on 8 separate playthroughs in the space of a year. It's a known bug, but the developers don't have the budget to fix it. So I summon an Uber, and I have no idea what the car looks like, and I definitely can't see the reg plate. It's a little hide-and-seek mini-game. The Uber driver eventually finds me, and now I'm down on credits. I didn't make it to the office on time either. Mission failed. Level 1 patch notes. A quick fix without pissing off the publishers. Remote working is now optional to avoid unreliable fast travel. 2024 Amex GBT survey found that 50% of disabled professionals had no choice but to reject job offers due to unreliable transport. Level 2. I spawn near the office building. I use my phone's viewfinder to locate the entrance, but I run into a few issues. I don't have a keycard to get in. I'm also really struggling to locate the button that opens the door. I risk using my viewfinder to locate the communication box, and I'm eventually let in. I've now infiltrated the building. I hear a voice in the distance and follow it down a long corridor. Eventually, a wild receptionist appears and awards me a shiny new keycard. They summon an elder from the team to come and collect me. I embark on a follow mission. I don't want to be rude to the NPC though, as I maintain focus, but as a consequence, I haven't been able to map out the environment, making it extremely difficult and awkward if I need to quickly escape. Mission failed. Level 2 patch notes. Studio entrance and door buttons have been made clearer and easier to locate with high contrast and tactile indicators. Keycards are now already in your inventory before the start of a new game. Players are shown around the office as well, so they can navigate safely. A study by Lancaster University's Work Foundation found that remote and hybrid work is absolutely essential for disabled people. The same study found that 25% of disabled people who were not in work and receiving benefits would work if they were able to work remotely. Level 3. The elder has shown me to my desk. I still haven't been able to scan the area. Everything is behind the fog of war. I sit down and realise that the print on the keyboard is microscopic. The monitor is also tied down to the back of the desk. I need the screen to be close to my face so I can see it, but they're not willing to break security protocol. The computer has been activated, and the icons are unreadable. Work can't commence. Mission failed. Level 3 patch notes. Customization. Adjustable equipment like monitors, stands, and keyboards have now been implemented. Players with disabilities are now assigned a desk for consistency and accessibility. A Deloitte Commission survey and UK inclusion report found that 55% of disabled professionals stated that their home setup is more accessible than the office setup. Level 4. The coffee from this morning is making a return. It's the absolute opposite of Solid Snake. I have to find the toilet. I awkwardly ask a colleague to join co-op mode to show me the easiest route to the toilets. I return with 0 stamina, so I need to recharge. I find the coffee machine, but can't find the coffee. I have to be very, very careful not to accidentally use Karen's expensive elephant shit coffee grounds. I accidentally spill water everywhere as well. Mission failed. The only thing I made was a mess. Level 4 patch notes. Safe interactions. Disabled players can now confidently use appliances without fear of judgment for damage or mess. The shame mechanic has been removed from co-op requests. The charity Ewan's Guide reported that 78% of all disabled people in the UK avoided going somewhere because of the lack of accessible toilets. Level 5. It's now lunch. Everyone is leaving for food, and an NPC approaches to ask if I want to join their party. Out of fear of having to be carried by the rest of the team, I politely declined. It's fine though. I would have struggled to read the menus anyway. It would have been super overwhelming on top of everything else that has already happened in the previous levels. I'm now on my own, my mental health bar is low, I have to find some food, a bright light appears over the vending machine. However, I type in a 5 instead of a 6, so I now have 2 bottles of water and a packet of quavers. Mission technically a success, but the 2 bottles of water and a bag of air were a personal fail. Level 5 patch notes. Alternative food options. Support is now offered with lunch arrangements. This could be as simple as sharing a delivery app or assigning a lunch buddy. Mental health monitoring. The game AI now recognizes that social and physical accessibility are connected. A 2022 UK and University of Sheffield survey found that 38% of professionals in the games industry are living with mental health conditions. That's 1 in 3 people in the games industry who are struggling with their mental health. Level 6. It's now the end of the day and time to go home. I am guided out of the building. Very little charge left on my viewfinder. It's raining and dark, the contrast is extremely low, and the entire environment has become unrecognisable. I use a cheat code to activate the map on my viewfinder. The map hasn't updated to include roadworks, so now I have to ask a stranger for help. They tell me that I have to travel through the dark alley of lost souls. This guy is weird. Why would he call it that? Anyway, I walk through and my fear meter has spiked. I'm expecting to fight off some enemies, but it looks like I'm safe this time. I make it to the transport spawn point. With a steady 60 FPS, the transport NPC actually turns up. I get on and get back to my base. Mission success. Level 6 patch notes. Remote working is now optional to avoid dangerous travel routes for more vulnerable players. According to the Office for National Statistics, people with disabilities make up only 25% of the UK population, but are twice as likely to be a victim of a crime. That's it. Game over. Let's be honest. Company values can sometimes be complete bullshit. This company has some great values. They say they're inclusive, they believe in a diverse team, and that diverse team can make better games. They believe in an accessible and open environment. They even have a state-of-the-art office with braille signage for people who are blind or low vision, and quiet zones to support neurodiverse needs. From the outside, they do look like they care and look like a legit ideal company to work for. That's unless you're disabled and require remote working to safely and reasonably do your job. You can apply for 2 days working from home. It's all well and good having a safe space and braille signage, but it's assuming that the people who rely on those adjustments can actually get to the office to begin with. They've neglected the entire journey of a disabled person and only thought about the requirements whilst they're in the office. A state-of-the-art office doesn't make it any easier to actually get there. The same studio recently reached out directly to me about a role they felt I was a strong fit for. Remember, they reached out to me. After I disclosed my disability, I was told that they can't offer fully remote working and they wouldn't even consider it. If your studio doesn't offer remote working as a choice, can they really claim they're inclusive? Studios might be worried about staff leaking parts of the game during development. Unless you completely shut off the internet and make everyone put digital devices in a secure locker, leaks can and have happened from within an office. I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is that remote working is an easy, quick win solution to the problem of inclusion. And this is just my opinion, but I think hybrid is the illusion of inclusion. COVID proved that we can work remotely. What's changed? According to the ONS, during the pandemic, the number of disabled people in employment increased by 25%. Remote working removes common barriers such as commuting, inaccessible workplaces, and rigid schedules. Disabled people didn't suddenly become more qualified during COVID. The world just became a bit more accessible. I want to clarify, I'm not against being in an office. In fact, I would love to work in an office, but there's barriers that exist. I get it. People think it can be isolating working remotely. It can be if you let it. I've worked at studios where we had a Discord channel specifically for open working, so you can have your camera or microphone on and not feel isolated. It's called adapting, but this is my point. We need to treat everyone as individuals. I had absolutely no idea just how topical this talk would be. The government claims they want to help disabled people into work. How? How do we solve it when the standard way of working in an office in an expensive city with unreliable transport and constant roadworks doesn't work for a lot of disabled people? For the longest time it has been assumed that disabled people can't work. We can work, we just need to be included. The corporate companies and studios who claim all the cool buzzwords like DEI, accessibility and inclusion are the same ones excluding disabled people. By including disabled developers in your team, you automatically make a more accessible product. And let's be honest, money talks. It just makes bad business sense to ignore disabled players. If you still need convincing to include disabled developers in your team, disabled developers naturally understand the barriers faced by disabled players. This leads to catching accessibility issues early, rather than the lack of accessibility being an afterthought. Solving problems for disabled developers often results in better experiences for all players. It's known as the curb cut effect. In case you didn't know what the curb cut effect is, it's this. They were originally intended for wheelchair users, but mothers with prams started using them, people with heavy luggage, elderly people. It was intended to help one group of people, but ended up helping many more. Half of disabled players have chosen not to purchase games because they lacked the accessibility features they needed. And with 1 in 4 gamers worldwide identifying as disabled, you're alienating a quarter of the players that could be buying your games. That's 3.5 million people in the UK and 2 billion people worldwide who could be playing your game. Could. That's a lot of money. I'm living proof that this works. I worked on Zombie Dog, and although it was only for a few months to polish a vertical slice, I managed to implement a dismemberment system as well as doing the VFX and animations. I also managed to implement bits of accessibility. It was whilst I was creating the blueprint to change the colours and clothing of each zombie. I did a boolean, I'm pretty sure it was called accessibility ? And if you ticked it true, it would override all the different colour selections of each zombie and just turn them all one colour with a slight glow. And that's great for people with low vision or visual impairments. But to just push it one step further, I added a colour selection as well, which would be beneficial for people who are colourblind. Now, this is only small bits of accessibility, but this is how easy it is to implement as you go, rather than having it as an afterthought. I've also been working on my own game called Dr. Rasher. My cousin has cerebral palsy, and it got me thinking. Not everyone can afford accessible controllers after buying a console, especially with how expensive they are now. So I created the game to be playable entirely on either side of the Xbox controller. You can gain abilities during the game as well, like slow-mo is available immediately as soon as you pick up the game. Simple things like this, having these unlocked from the get-go, can be great for people who maybe have slower reaction times or dexterity issues. Why do I want to do it? Why do I want to implement this stuff into games? Games gave me the escapism I needed as a kid. I want to help do the same for someone else. I want as many people as possible to be able to enjoy games. Implementing accessibility doesn't have to be complicated. It just shouldn't be ignored. For most of my 8 years in video games, I've been doing this job completely remotely. In fact, I've worked on all of these games and projects completely remotely. In the case of Zombieland, I even led a team of 20 people completely remotely. So now I'm done ranting. To wrap up, this is my practical advice to any studio wanting to be more inclusive and include disabled developers in the conversation. It's much simpler than you think, and here's how you do it. Stop thinking about people as the studio and start thinking about them as individuals. If someone wants to work in the studio, let them. If someone wants to work remotely, also let them. If someone is great at what they do and will be an asset to your studio, you should trust them and respect them enough to give them the choice. Disabled developers aren't a tick box. We're creators, problem solvers, storytellers, and we bring lived experience that can help make games better for everybody. Remote work isn't a perk. It's a simple, powerful way to open doors that have been closed for far too long. Accessibility doesn't just help disabled people, it helps everyone. It's not about lowering the bar, it's about building a bigger, better playground. The next generation of talent is already on the way. SEND students, carers, neurodivergent creatives. The future of games and game development is more diverse than ever. So the question isn't should you be more inclusive, it's can you afford not to be? If there's one thing I'd love for you to take away from my talk, it's this. Inclusion means everybody, not just the people who are easiest to accommodate. If we build workplaces with empathy and flexibility at their core and begin treating everyone as individuals, we're not just supporting disabled developers, We're making the entire industry stronger, more creative, and more human. Thanks for listening.